So here's the ugly truth. If you are an old soul, which pretty good chance you are because you're watching this video and you're interested in this sort of stuff, there is a very good chance that you had one or more previous lives enslaved. It's a very common experience, and there are a lot of opportunities, unfortunately, for this to happen. So today we're going to be talking about what your life looks like today, or how it would look like today if you had a previous enslaved life, what lessons you are working on learning in this life because of that, and how to heal the trauma and the drama that still is affecting you from that previous life so that you don't have to continue to carry it forward. But we're also going to be talking about another area that isn't often talked about. Not that this is often talked about, but when it is talked about, one area that isn't discussed is relationships, because your enslaver and you have a karmic relationship, and they are probably in this life today. Yeah. A life in slavery is one of the most potent creators of past life fears, because you lived a life trapped and in fear, and you most likely were not able to escape it, meaning that you died with this unprocessed and unhealed trauma. Because you were not able to release it in that life, that frequency, that vibration, those effects are still showing up so that you can clear them. You're experiencing challenges in your life now to give it a chance to come up to the surface so you can move it forward. So, sadly to say, this is part of the human curriculum of an experience that we have in order to learn about a variety of different aspects of human nature. So let's talk about how it's showing up in your life now. Let's first talk about your body and your physical experience, because enslavement is a very physical experience. So you're going to probably find some signs in your own body. So, one, this is all very heavy to talk about. So I hope you take a moment after watching this video to meditate or go for a walk, but I want to dig into this topic and I want to dig into these truths. So let's talk about it. One is issues with your wrists, your ankles, your neck, places that perhaps you were chained or restricted in some way. So this could mean that you could have marks, like birthmarks in this area, moles, etc. It could mean that you have pains in these particular areas, or you get wounded if that was part of your experience in that enslaved life. You're also going to have a real resistance or reaction to feeling confined. So this could be claustrophobia, small spaces. So you can imagine that you had some really horrible experience to have that fear in this life. This can even be just being pinned down, like under sheets or blankets, or somehow physically restricted because you experience a lack of being able to freely move your body in that previous life. And so, whenever that happens in this life, it can trigger you, and you might have an out of sized sort of emotional reaction to it. You might have a real hot relationship about the home as well. So perhaps you are worried about losing your home or being pulled away from your home, or you stay in your home a lot because you're afraid of foreign places. This could be particularly if you were somebody that was stolen from your homeland and taken somewhere else. Another way this can show up in the physical arena is if you are somebody who pushes yourself past the state of exhaustion because of that previous life where you were pushed to exhaustion over and over again. You learned how to disconnect yourself from your body. You learned how to not listen to your body. You learned that your work output was more important than your physical experience. So in this life, you might end up being a bit of a workaholic. You might end up pushing through and having those really late nights and not eating and not feeding yourself and not resting because that is something familiar to you and you have this drive within you, which we'll talk about more when we get into the lessons, but you have this drive within you that your work determines your worth. Your work is more important than your happiness. Kind of on the other side of that, physical exhaustion side of things, you might not like exercise. You might not like physical labor. If you had a life where that was very much your full experience and you were trapped in it, you might have a big resistance to doing that sort of thing. You might call yourself lazy in this life, but it could simply be because you're trying to catch up on some rest. You are trying to get away from that physical exertion that caused you so much suffering. And that might go along with just wanting to rest a lot, wanting to do whatever it is that you want to do, not like being put in particular schedules or expectations because you want to be free to do what you want. Freedom is going to be very important to you. So as far as the physical world experiences, you're going to want to have physical experiences of freedom because you had physical experiences of a lack of freedom. This can show up in maybe you like riding motorcycles or bicycles or surfing. You like having the wind go through your hair. You like going far to different distances. Maybe you like to travel. Whatever it is, you want to get out of whatever the situation is here. So again, whatever your experience was like in a previous life, whatever your unique constraints were in that life are going to be showing up in this one. So if you were somebody who was taken from your home, you might not like travel. That might be something that you hate because you're afraid of being away from home. However, if you never had a home, then maybe going out and being other places in the world and escaping what your home area is the thing that excites you more. Now let's talk more about this freedom compulsion, because compulsion with freedom is going to be key in your life. This is the phrase to pay attention to. Don't tell me what to do. That is a good sign that you had a previous life where you were told exactly what to do and you couldn't push back from it. So in this life, you might be very stubborn and determined to do whatever it is you want to do. And whenever anybody tries to control you, you react strongly to it. You might have a lot of issues with authority or people in power. You don't trust them. You feel like they're going to take advantage of you. They're going to do bad things to you. And you don't respect their power. If in your work life you have a micromanager, somebody who's trying to control your every move, you might have very strong reactions to that. You do not want to be controlled by other people. This is probably going to cause you to feel this sense of rage within you or feeling trapped. It might also give you a feeling of being panicked or afraid if other people try to control you because of that past life. I think this often shows up too with women. There's this collective expectation, it's stronger in different countries, that women are to be of service, to handle everything, to run everything. It's an expectation that gets put on us. And it can cause people to it's causing a lot of women right now to react very strongly, to wake up to it. I know for myself, when there's this expectation that I am supposed to serve somebody else, even if it isn't explicit, it's just this subtle expectation that I'm the one that's supposed to be clearing the table or whatever. I have a level of rage inside of me that is a bit perplexing because it doesn't make sense to the situation at hand. It's going to be very important to you to have control over your time, over your body, and over your effort. This is key. And the inverse can also apply, that it could be that you are very much a person who is trying to please or appease others because you're afraid that if you don't do what people tell you to do, that bad things will happen. Again, depending on what your experience was, it might show up in different ways. And depending on what your soul type is, it can also show up in different ways. So it might be very hard for you to say no because you learned there are very bad consequences to saying no and to holding boundaries. It was not safe. And so you might not feel safe in this life to do it. Okay, so that's the freedom bucket. Now let's talk about the self-expression bucket, talking about things that are not safe, do not feel safe in this life because it sure wasn't safe in that previous life. Self-expression is a big one. You may find yourself reflecting back to other people what you know they want to hear or see from you. You don't feel safe expressing your truth, your authenticity, but instead you want to do whatever it is that that other person wants or expects, because then you won't get in trouble. Then bad things won't happen. You might have a lot of issues with your voice, with saying no. No is going to be a theme. It's going to be really hard for you to say no until you learn that lesson. And you're probably getting opportunities to practice it in this life, to be fair, that you're having to hold your own boundaries. But it can be really scary to do so. People pleasing, over apologizing, freezing in conflict, giving away your power. All of these things were techniques that kept you safe in a previous life and are continued to be deployed in this life. You might even find that in like literally how you communicate, not only verbally, but writing, right? Perhaps you're somebody that when you type an email or a text, you retype it and recreate it and recreate it because you know that your words and how you say something, if you say things wrong, it might trigger the other person and they might explode at you, or things could go very wrong. So you do what you can to shape your words so that it doesn't upset the other person. That's not to say it isn't important to craft your communication in a way that's kind and doesn't cause harm to other people, but it is also important to be truthful, to be authentic, and to represent your own self. We'll get into that when we get into lessons. Okay. Following on from that is a distrust and a fear of others. I already mentioned the distrust of authority, but you might have that in general with other people. You might be hyper vigilant. You might be very aware and scanning the room to see who could potentially hurt me. Who is the bad guy in this room? Who do I have to protect myself against? This could be very much also about the people that are in power, specifically. Like, look at your relationship with your bosses. Do you feel like you always have to pay attention to their mood? Do you feel like you're having to be very careful? Are you afraid of your bosses? Are you afraid of their judgment or their criticism? Is it an outsized sort of fear? You might be looking for how you're going to be betrayed, whether that's from your boss, your coworkers, your family, your friends, etc. Who is going to hurt you? And maybe there's a bit of a strong reaction to when there is any sort of a slight because you're hyper reactive to what could happen. And then I think, kind of related to the fear aspect, fear of others, there's also very likely going to be a fear of losing people in your life. If you had the horrible experience, and I know I'm being very matter of fact about this, but please note, like, this horrifies me to my soul, whatever these experiences were that we all went through, you all went through, we all went through. But I think it's important to talk about this in a straightforward manner. So there's me being afraid of how you're going to react to what I have to say, interestingly enough. Okay, getting back to it. Fear of losing others in your life. If you had lives or a life where your family was stolen from you, you could be very terrified that at any moment, anytime, the people that you love the most could be taken from you. That could be a wound you're still carrying with you today. And let's keep on with the trauma chain. This is such heavy stuff. I am sorry. Okay. Next is the worth wound. Your value is tied to your output. You might have a very strong feeling or slight feeling, if you've worked through it in previous lives, of inferiority, that somehow you are less than other people, that somehow you're a lesser class. This might particularly show up as workaholism, as we mentioned earlier, we, the royal we, as I mentioned earlier, that your work, your production is what your value as a human being is. Certainly, this United States, if you're here, that certainly is a theme in this country. And look at our history. So that could be still something in this life that you think your value is based on your job. That is your worth as a human being, is your productivity. But interestingly, going with that, you might find yourself settling for less than your actual value is. You might not be fighting for that raise. You might be taking that job where the pay is much less than what your skill set is at. You're used to settling for less because internally, on some level, you were told that your value was less than. So you find it easier to settle for monetary values that are less than. Okay, and the final area as we look around your life to see what it might look like today, that gives us some clues before we get into the lessons that all of this is offering and how we can actually move forward from all of this. Other things that your life might look like, you might be very drawn to the era. So, for example, if you were enslaved in Rome, you might be very drawn to that. You might be very drawn to learning about slavery in the American South or in the Caribbean, etc. There might be something that really draws you to it or repels you, that you feel very strongly against. I don't want to go to that part of the world. You have a strong aversion to it. You might also be very drawn to racial issues if you were part of the African enslavement situation, where maybe racial issues, racial justice is very important to you. And in general, you might have a fierce issue with injustice. Injustice, when you witness injustice, it might trigger a rage within you so loud that you feel like you could explode because you're still carrying this unhealed wound. But it is a great opportunity when we talk about how we can take our wounds and transform them into gifts, where you're able to take this previous experience and do something with it to brighten the world and make the world a better place and make it a more just place. Okay, so that's how your life is looking like now. So, because let's, as a little reminder of how this whole life thing works. Oh, yeah, and by the way, hi, I'm Jillian. I'm getting into that introduction a little late in the video. If you're new here, I talk all about reincarnation and life lessons and how we are here to play this game of life, right? So, in all of my videos that I talk about over and over again, life lessons is a key focus because it's what our entire life is wrapped around. We had previous lives. We had drama and trauma and pain and suffering and things that we learned the wrong way and things where we didn't learn. So we carry that into this life. And we have this life set up so that all those things that still need to be learned and healed get re-triggered. So if you had a previous life where you experienced a lot of injustice, in this life, you might also experience a lot of injustice because it's triggering that wound so that you can heal it and move forward and get to what it is that you are learning in this life. So let's talk about what you're learning in this life. One, obviously, freedom. You are learning about how important it is to be free. You experience the converse side of that. This life, you might be working on what freedom looks like. So you might be very much about following your own path, about traveling, about doing what it is you want to do. We talked about how it looks like in your life, and that is part of how you are exercising, learning that lesson. You are wanting to experience the aspect of freedom as a human being and fully understand this side of the coin. Another thing you might be working on learning is self expression, as we talked about in your life previously and in this one. You might not feel safe being authentic. This life is giving you challenges, I am sure, to give you an opportunity to work through that and to shift that, to learn how to express yourself safely and in a way that you feel authentic to yourself, to learn how to find that safety within yourself. This might mean in this life you're drawn to writing or storytelling or art or singing or all of these different avenues that's all about taking what it is you have inside of you, what your truth is, and sharing it with the world, because self-expression and self-authenticity is key to our spiritual experience. It's how we share our gifts with the world. It's how we light up the world. It's how we change the lives of other people, is through sharing our beauty. So by stepping into the fear and the discomfort, you can transform it, work through it, and get to the other side where you can share what your gifts are. You might also find in this life that you're experiencing this tension between wanting to be seen and not wanting to be seen, because you're wanting to express yourself. You've got a mission or a drive to do that, but you have still that memory of things going wrong. So you want to hide so that you stay safe. So it's all about stepping into discomfort, unfortunately, stepping into the fear in order to be that authentic version of yourself. Which leads us to another thing that you're working on learning, which is self-confidence and value, or possibly, I mean, maybe you're not, but this is one that we frequently see when we are looking at folks that are carrying these past life wounds, is that feeling of being less than, right? That you're somehow a lower grade human being than other people. This is the life where you're able to learn, oh no, actually, I have inherent intrinsic value exactly as I am. I am worth being treated as somebody of worth. This is all about finding your self confidence and your self esteem. You might have had challenges in this life that push against that, but this is the opportunity to stand up and say, no, who I am is amazing and wonderful and has gifts to give to the world. It is a hard path, but it is a worthwhile one. Also, kind of connected to that is the one of empowerment. Because you had experiences of powerlessness, your opportunity in this life is to find your power, is to connect with your beautiful power. You may have in this life had a lot of experience of being disempowered or powerless, so that you get the opportunity to find your own power and what that flavor of power looks like and stand up proudly in the world. This takes us to the healing, okay? So, talking about moving into the fear and dealing with the fear, this is really taking us into the how to heal portion of our video. How can you heal these wounds? Well, one of the ways is by walking into the fear. I also call it walking into the fire. Your soul is creating experiences for you in this life, exercises, homework assignments. These are showing up in your life as challenges. Maybe this is in relationships, and maybe this is in the area of fear. There are things you are afraid of expressing yourself, doing, etc. Standing up for yourself. creating boundaries, all of these things. And these experiences, these circumstances are triggering this fear intentionally, because it is by going into the fear and seeing that you're still safe, that you're okay. It's by working the fear that you can clear it. Now, it's not the only way, but it is I think, the default mode of how life is set up for us to experience. Fear comes into our life, we push into it, we push through it, and we release it. We release that energy through facing it. I know that's not easy. I know it's not easy. Work with somebody, get some help to help you do it. I do coaching, but a therapist is also really great, or even a friend who is really there and solid to support you through it. It is hard to go through something like this, facing fears by yourself. You need a cheerleader. You need somebody that is showing you, wow, you did amazing. I can't believe you were able to accomplish that. Take a moment to really see how wonderful you are. Sometimes you need that reflected back at you so that you can keep moving forward. Another powerful way to heal is through awareness. A lot easier than walking into your fears. But our awareness, we are consciousness. That's our essence. We are consciousness. And our awareness is our superpower, or one of our superpowers. But I would say it's our biggest one. And by bringing awareness into the situation itself, it can transform it. So if we're talking about trying to move through these fears, the awareness of, oh, this fear that I'm going to be killed or hurt if I say something that upsets somebody, this is because of a past life or a childhood wound, because you probably have childhood wounds too, because that was part of the setup to re-trigger all of this. But by bringing your conscious awareness to it and be like, oh, this isn't me. This isn't my identity. This isn't who I am, which can be very easy to believe. But if you know this isn't who I am, this is just an outfit, a cloak, a layer that's been put on me because of previous experiences, and I just have to figure out how to remove it, or I just need to let it go. Maybe I don't even need to figure it out at all, but I need to release it by bringing your awareness to it, and it allows you to let go of it. Because if you see yourself as someone who is powerless, as someone who works too hard, as someone, if it's your identity, you're holding on to it. It's by shifting your identity and your awareness that you're able to release it and move forward. It's not just fear that you could embrace. You could also embrace the lesson you are working on. This is maybe a gentler way to go about it. But if you resonated with self-expression is the issue, or empowerment is your issue, or all of them are your issue, hold on to and embrace what that lesson is. So if you're saying, okay, I'm clearly working on the lesson of self-expression, how can I safely, gently, maybe not so safely, whatever your game is, how can I start to really, or continue to really learn that lesson? If it is that I'm learning about empowerment, how can I show up empowered in my life today? Because there are homework assignments happening in your life. You have exercises that are presenting them. This is the gameplay I often talk about, or usually talk about. Life is a video game that we're playing. These challenges that come in your life are the gameplay to help you learn the lessons. You have a conflict with your boss. This is the exercise to help you learn this lesson. You just got offered a job that's offering you $20,000 less than you're worth. This is the exercise for you to learn this lesson. Are you going to say, no, I am worth more? It can be scary. That's the whole point in moving through it and learning the lesson. Take what's in front of you and start to work it. And finally, what I think is the easiest way to go through and heal these lessons is through past life regressions. Now, it's not everybody's jam, or maybe not everybody can afford it. There are online ones. I have an online past life regression myself, but I always recommend going and working with past life hypnotherapists that can guide you and work through things to bring up those previous lives, to be able to walk through them, and then to be able to detach from them. Because as I said at the beginning, you didn't get a chance to release that energy in that life because you died with it. By going back through a past life regression, it gives you the opportunity to release that energy. And for you to really see that was that lifetime, this is this lifetime. Again, it's really about bringing your awareness into the story, which then shifts it and reshapes it. Now, one of the exercises that you might have in this life is through the karmic relationship with your enslaver. Now, you may have had a karmic relationship before that life even began, from lives before. And so there was roles that were played in that particular life. Regardless whether that was a previous connection or not, you certainly have a karmic relationship now. That person is certainly in your debt because they misused you as a body and they misused you as a soul. So that karmic relationship is going to show up in one of three ways, I find, in this life. So as I go through these, look around in your life to see which one lights you up as a possibility. So the first is role reversal. This is how as I go through these three, these are how karmic relationships work. Okay. So the first one is role reversal. So if in the past life you were powerless and they were the one in power, now in this life, you are the one in power and they are powerless to you. Perhaps this is a child, perhaps this is an employee, perhaps this is a younger sibling, etc. You're going to particularly see this dynamic because the one in power is going to treat the powerlessness one very poorly. So I hope this isn't how it's showing up in your life, really. But it is one of the ways that it's reciprocating. They agreed, the enslaver agreed, okay, I will receive from you what I gave to you so that you're giving it back to me. So if you do have somebody that is powerless, that for some reason you treated really poorly, unlike how you treat most other people, it could be because you are giving them their karmic balance back. And I don't mean that in a way that like there's some part of you that's like, ha ha ha, I'm going to give this back to you. I mean, before you came to the form, the soul said, I'm out of balance. I'm asking you to treat me this way so that I can get what I need out of this life. It doesn't mean it's okay to treat people badly. We're still on the hook karmically when we treat people badly, but it is a way to balance out the scales. I'm going to guess that one is probably not as likely in your life. I think that's going to happen a bit more if you were a younger soul. As an older soul, it's less likely that you're willing to engage in that dynamic. So it might show up in the second way, which is karmic rebalancing through service. So in this way, the enslaver is now working off the debt to you through being of service to you. So instead of getting that negative behavior towards them, maybe they're able to get that from some other person who is at a lower evolutionary stage, an earlier evolutionary stage. And so instead with you, it's all about being of service. So maybe they're taking care of you. Maybe they're helping heal your body. Maybe they're helping you feel empowered. Whatever it was that they took from you in this life, they're all about giving it back to you. Because at this point now, their soul has grown up enough to realize what they did was wrong. And now they're trying to balance things out in the positive way. And then the third option, which is my least favorite, but also is going to be perhaps more common if the two souls both have not really moved a lot very forward on their life lessons. And that is repeating the pattern until the lesson is learned. There was something each of you had an opportunity to learn in this dynamic. And if you still are continuing to engage in the same behaviors, if you, as the enslaved person, still continue to see yourself as less than, as not empowered, as not worthy, and the enslaver still thinks that they can use people for their own ends, take what they want, not have compassion, it could be that each of you continue to repeat those roles until one of you or both of you says, oh, this is not who I want to be anymore. So this can show up, not and that maybe not in that as dramatic of a sense. I certainly hope, but it could be a controlling parent, a controlling boss, just a really unhealthy power dynamic between the two of you until you say no, or they say, no, I don't want to be this person anymore. That's why I really, really, really recommend that you working through your lessons of empowerment and learning how to say no, because then you're able to change this karmic story. If you want to learn more about karmic relationships, I did a video on karmic relationships quite a while ago. This is in my previous office, and you'll see a whole different background, but it is one of my most popular videos where I really talk all about karmic relationships, how they work, how to recognize them, how to work them, etc. You can catch that here. I hope that you're doing okay. This was a heavy one. If this resonated with you, I am sorry that this was a past life experience, but I'm really happy that you're here now, healthy, alive, and free. I'll see you next time. Bye.